Well, hello everyone. Excuse me, Philosopher Stoner. Another video, quick response to some comments. So, Mr. Poole commented that his political compass had changed since the last time he did it. Yeah, I've had that a couple of times too. Really, also can kind of depend on what your mood is that day. But generally speaking, I score some kind of right wing libertarian or left wing libertarian. The last couple of times I've done it, and I take like 6 month breaks between doing it, I'm typically some kind of a centrist libertarian, a little more towards the left or a little more towards the right. But generally, my thinking is sort of in that bottom part, the bottom left and right quadrants. I'm never the top ones, never. Um, anyway, yeah. And then another comment by a guy, Mr. S, about Gary's views on the poor. Sort of saying that Gary's wrong about the poor. It's one of these take points that he doesn't agree with. You sort of make a blanket statement there and don't really explain why. Why is he wrong? Um, yeah, you got to answer why. Definitely got to do that. So it's hard since this video has mostly been about politics so far. It's just a preamble to what I'm about to say. It's hard with politics that it tends to be that people that are so, that have an animosity towards the rich and the elite, generally speaking, they seem to be madly in love with poor people. Although that's not quite true. There's some of the right wingers, like the Alex Jones, David Icke types, they have an animosity towards certain members of the elite, not all the rich people, just certain ones, right? Like the bankers or certain ones. But generally speaking, yes, it's the anybody that has animosity towards the rich and their disgusting waste of resources and a lot of the parasitical rackets that they're in and the lack of democracy and the a lack of accountability of all of these rich people, right? Their yachts and their champagne and all their stuff. People that are against that generally tend to like the poor, and then people that like like the poor, uh, right, generally have this thing against the rich, right? And then all the people that really, have the animosity towards the poor people and say that the poor are doing wrong tend to be madly in love with the rich, right? The Trumpers and the whatever tend to be, oh yeah, yeah, certain rich people, yeah, it's also great, it's so wonderful. Um, I wouldn't say like Gary is 100% right, but he's not wrong either. I tend to agree with it. Um, really, it's like guys like Sir David Attenborough have come out that, okay, yeah, there's all these poor people in Africa having too many kids. But then, yes, he does sort of miss the point that, yes, there's also a lot of people like himself, elite people, sirs, that kind of thing, that, they waste a lot of resources on a lot of stupid bullshit and not held accountable for it. So he's not wrong, though. There is an overpopulation problem, and yes, it's mostly the poor people. It's this top 10% we got to worry about, and then the bottom 10%, right? So, yes, there's all these poor people, overpopulation. There's also, yes, in the first world, an overconsumption problem where we're just over consuming resources on these phones and all this stuff that's, we'll get immediate short term benefit out of it, but long term, it really is screwing over the planet. We won't be able to have these phones, in 300, 400 years from now. The resources probably won't be there because there's too many people. Um, but yeah, overconsumption of resources definitely. But yeah, these poor people, I don't see the reason to be so in love with them, right? They have more excuse than the rich, right? Because they're in a state of ignorance. They're just trying to get out of a mess all most of the time that they can't be like us where we sort of climb the walls of the maze and get on top of the walls and see the maze for what it is. They're sort of still stuck in the maze, right? But right? They impose their poverty, right? They have children that they can't afford. They have too many children. They don't control their own affairs. They don't budget. The left has gone in this direction where, yes, it wants a UBI and it wants all of this, basically this stuff that's a free lunch. And at the end of the day, like, I'm a left wing person, but in the sense of a democratic workplace, right? The idea of having it be participatory, democratic, right? The suggestion box is listened to. And it should be, if you participate and you contribute, you should have a voice. And it should also be lead towards worker self-management, towards people not having all these bosses and hierarchies and having, all this stuff. It distorts everything, right? People don't want to boss. People don't want to be bossed around. But that's one thing. That's not saying it's a free lunch. That's not saying you get a free ride, right? You got to work and you got to participate and you got to contribute. Got to have some kind of a work ethic, all that kind of stuff, right? Whereas now the left has become this, yeah, they want a universal basic income, and it's not being done out of some altruism or something. It's being done to control people, right? If you have a political opinion that they don't like, that's outside of the control system, they can shut off your UBI and you can't participate. And it's sort of, yes, it's a UBI in the sense that it's just going to grow this Hunger Games society that we're heading in that sort of direction. But yes, these poor people are stupid. They're not educated. They cause all these problems, right? Like I said, have too many kids. Um, Desperation just creates more desperation, and we just keep bailing them out, right? The UN food program feeds all these people where they would otherwise just die, and which is cold, which is hard, which is terrible, but still, right? People that can't feed themselves, just making babies of, guess what? They can't feed themselves either. And there, we've created all of these dependents and all of these dependent people, and that's where I live in Canada. Some of the left wing stuff has gone in this other direction where, yes, it's not productive. You got to incentivize people and teach people to be productive and do productive stuff. It can't be handouts all over the place. Yes, having a bunch of drug addicts and bums and people that just aren't very productive or useful. They're just derelicts, and this welfare state enables stuff like that. And no, it's not right. It's not a good thing. So yes, you got to have some suspicion towards the rich, definitely, and the elite and the powerful, and they should be held more accountable because they should know better, right? They're educated, presumably, all that kind of thing. That the shenanigans they get up to, yes, we got to hold them ultimately in the end accountable. But yes, a lot of these poor people, yes, they need to have a stern talking to, a finger shaking at them, be like, you know what? Yeah, smarten up a little bit more. I can't say like, oh yeah, pull up your bootstraps and toughen up, because yes, I got provided for. I got taken care of. My country, my society looked out for me. Me with my, high functioning autism crap. I was given a lot of opportunities, a lot of chances, and yes, my society took care of me. So I'm not saying it's people got to pull up their bootstraps or something, some bullshit like that, but a little bit, like just a little tiny bit. Like prior to getting my money that I got, I was always financially disciplined, right? I knew how to save. I'd save, 10, 20% of what I made. I always had a plan. I never maxed out credit cards. I never had any debt. I avoided debt like the plague, stuff like that, that I had some kind of brain in my head and realized, yes, there's an element to a lot of stuff where it's, yes, it's kind of self-reliance kind of thing that you got to do a little bit, even though, again, like I said, you got to have a heart, you got to have compassion, you got to be charitable, you got to help people. It's a good feel good thing to do. It's a good thing to do. I'm not saying don't do it, but yeah, like educating people, I guess, yes, education is important. Teaching the poor people to not be so fucking stupid, yes, would be a good thing. I'm in favor of, perhaps some social welfare programs that, again, get people educated. I donate to charities like Kiva, that are interest-free loans for, say, women or poor people to get an interest-free loan to start a business. So it's not free money. They got to pay it back, but it's manageable. There's no interest, stuff like that, encouraging them to be productive, get an education, that kind of thing. And that can help and that can go a long way. So I'm not saying don't help the poor people at all, but you don't just keep giving, free foods without some sort of, say, developing some sort of an action plan where they can be self-sufficient and take care of themselves. In the end, yes, it's making the choice, right, with, say, technology. Even it's the choice to either enslave people or liberate people. It should, in the end, it should be about elevating them and liberating them in the end, so that they don't have to rely on external help as much. That's the goal. Whereas what we're doing, however we're doing it, we're just making all of these dependent people. There's more disabled people alive than ever before in human history, right? Thanks to the welfare state. There's more sick people alive thanks to the healthcare industry, keeping people alive that should otherwise be dead. Um, all because of this altruism morality of, forcing, this obligation to just to take care of these people that can't take care of themselves a little too much. It's like gone in this direction, like I said, where it's not productive, it's not elevating them, it's not helping them to, manage their own affairs better. It's creating dependency and dependency on the government, and it's enabling this control system. And yes, the poor people are a big part of the problem, but they're not. Like I said, you gotta to hold the rich accountable and do all of that too. So, anyway, I think I've made my point clear. So unless you get into the reasons like why he's wrong and actually have some points that I could address or try to counter, or see like what you're saying, what you might have to say might be actually very reasonable, and I would consider your viewpoint, yes, if you went into depth. But yeah, like a text comment, whatever, you're like, yeah, you don't have to make an essay, but you could bring up some points and I might address them. So yeah, that's enough of a video. I never did that Sam Vankis guy. I should probably do that, but I don't know. I tried to watch some of his videos and I wasn't that into it, so I'm sorry to that user Frogsicle. I might get around to it at some point, but I've been busy trying to do a lot of stuff, so yeah, I don't know about that. We'll see, maybe, probably, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It sounds very wishy-washy what I just said there. Yeah, probably, yeah, maybe, but it'll happen. It'll happen or it won't happen. Nah, I don't know. So yeah, maybe, yeah. Enough of a video. Yeah, enough of a video. Bye.